Tonight on The Goat Show.
What time period would this be?
Yeah, this is Moneypenny.
The way I smoke, I don't know if you'll call it medical, but...
Bingo, so that is plasma propulsion.
I'm happy not to talk.
So you're saying Project Bluebeam.
All part of a government PSYOP.
You're a serial entrepreneur is what you are.
I'm a goat.
That makes four of us, okay? Welcome to The Goat Show, the show where we celebrate and debate all things great. My name is ZiLLY. I am joined by my co-hosts, Fresh and Deezy. Gentlemen, good to see you. Man, we have a really, really great show coming today with none other than Moneypenny, and we will get to her in a second. A friend of ours from the X universe, and someone who is really going deep in exploring everything related to the UAP phenomenon, MH370, and any number of other things related to those stories. But before we get to her, Fresh, what do the people got to do?
You got to like, you got to subscribe, you got to hit the bell, you got to drop a comment, and honestly, send it to everybody. Wake the world up.
We got to wake the world up because the information you're going to hear today is well researched. It will probably blow your mind especially if you're not familiar with these stories. But without further ado, let us get to our guest today. Welcome to The Goat Show, Moneypenny. How are you doing today?
I'm a goat. I'm very good, thank you.
Before the show, she says that she has her interviewee hat that she wears. So can you just show us that real quick? Sport it real quick. Show us the fit.
Ooh.
Very nice. Very nice. With the buckles. I like it. Very cool. Very cool. We know Moneypenny from X, formerly known as Twitter. I really wish that the branding would catch up. Honestly, I'm getting tired of having to say both. But we know her from, or I know her from, hopping in some of these UAP drone spaces. So we did a show a couple of shows ago. We'll put in the show notes. It was an interview with a friend of ours in LA, who, from his vantage point, was seeing all kinds of drones flying around. And so I ended up making friends with, I think it's Red Panda, and actually, and we'll get to him in a second, but started hanging out with him in his spaces. And then Moneypenny was in there talking about all kinds of fascinating things. And we connected there and just felt like, hey, we got to get her on the show because, she's really doing the deep research on all kinds of stuff related to these things. And so I felt like it'd be really great to have her on the show and talk about these things. So, but before we do, Moneypenny, something we do with every guest who comes on the show is we ask them, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Invisibility. I'd want a stealth semiconductor neurally linked in my brain.
Awesome. Would you want to use that invisibility to sneak into highly classified military bases to find information that you couldn't find otherwise?
Absolutely. 110%. I want to be that fly on the wall. I've even thought of, they do make these tiny little drones. You've probably seen it in some of the movies. They're the size of a little buzzing mosquito. I've always wanted to be one of those and just buzz in onto the FBI CIA wall. Yes.
That's a great superpower. Great explanation for why you want it. And from superpowers, we now get to superhero origin stories. So where did you grow up? What was life like growing up? What's you've done a lot in your life, and we'll get into it. But I'm just kind of curious, just where does this all start?
So I'm half Scottish, and I'm proud of the Scottish bit. English, I don't know. English people generally are very split north and south, and I'm much more of a northerner than a southerner. They call it sloppy southerners. Southerners tend to be more materialistic, more selfish, more commercial, more me. Northerners are a bit more laid back and a bit more chilled. They're a bit more West Coast, I suppose, in your terminology. And I'm more northern. I love the nature thing, the family thing, the just getting messy. I'm a bit of a hippie at heart. I was a goth at university, quite into my music. My brother's big in the music industry. And I was born in Leicester, which, if you go back to it, it's in sort of Middle England. It actually is an Indian community pretty much now, because we've got so many immigrants that there aren't many white Caucasians there. It's pretty much a whole Indian community now. And I was conceived in the back of a Morris Minor car, which is, I'm a petrolhead. I'm mad about cars, and I blame the point of conception that my mother and father must have done something in the back seat of this car.
What's the one ride? What's the one that you want in your garage?
Oh, well, I haven't done Tesla because Teslas aren't popular here, so I'd probably better say a Tesla Cybertruck. No, I drive anything. I'm a motorbiker as well. I've ridden motorbikes for 20 years. So, yeah, anything that moves. Put me in a go-kart, anything you like. I'm a mad petrol head.
Very cool, very cool. So you spent most of your life in the UK?
Yes, I did travel a lot though. I think I've done I have done all the continents apart from South America. I worked over in Malaysia for a bit. I'm mad about St. Lucia, the Caribbean. I call it my second home. St. Lucia is an island I've probably been 30, 35 times. Every single Christmas, other than the past few when I've been ill, I spent in St. Lucia. So I've got friends there and I've seen the real life there. I love the Caribbean. I love the attitude. I love the people. I love their optimism and their smiley behavior. And of course, I love sunshine.
Very cool, very cool. So I know you have, if you go to her profile, and we'll put all of her details in the show notes, but I think for a long time, it says that you were in financial services. Can you kind of elaborate on that? And then I think also you were in journalism as well in terms of your professional life.
Yeah, so at school I was quite bright and I was bullied badly because of it. My mother and father are both members of MENSA, which is the High IQ Society. And even when they split up, the second step mum that I have is also a MENSA member. So it's a kind of an IQ thing. So when I went to university, I became a goth and hid because I was being bullied at school, and I thought I'd get the same at university. But I found that I could do media stuff. So I started running the university radio station and the university newspaper. And from that, it sort of escalated that the BBC approached me.
What are your thoughts on IQ, in general on IQ? Because I see a lot of things on X in different places, and a lot of people emphasize the importance of IQ, and a lot of theories are postulated from IQ. I'm just kind of curious, and we don't have to have any sort of like general summation, but in your personal experience,
I think it's elitist. I think it is a horrible badge that you could put on somebody for being able to fit in some complicated puzzles. It's a logic test, effectively. It gives no bearing on your worldliness, your social communication skills, you as a person, your general knowledge even. You could have absolutely no general knowledge and still be a member of Mensa without even knowing what apartheid was or what racism was. You could still pass the Mensa test. It is absolutely ludicrously pinned as a badge. I sort of understand why, but I do love the reason why MENSA was formed, which is because people with high IQ particularly are more likely to be on the spectrum with an Asperger's or an ADHD or some sort of special skills, special power, let's call it. And therefore they find it impossibly difficult to interact socially. They feel different. They can't get on with people. They don't understand people. They don't understand emotion. They don't know how to cope with people. They can cope with numbers and written things and computers, but people are hard work. And therefore Mensa people are often very isolated and reclusive and lonely and depressed. And so the idea was to get people together that are in that position.
Okay, wow, great. I was just super curious about that. But continue. So you were in college and you decided to go into the media sphere.
Yeah, I became what's called a media hack. So I started running URE, University Radio Essex. I went to the most left-wing university on the planet, where I studied politics and economics, and I did a particular course in electoral behavior and Marxism. Yeah, it was a radical university. It was brilliant because it was active. We did loads of demonstrations and marches, and we protested against things. But I was running the media of the whole place pretty much within a year of being there. I'd taken over because I realized radio, it was radio predominantly. I could hide who I was because I wasn't confident. I'm still not inside. I really don't like myself as such because of a lot of the bullying, perhaps, and other stuff. But I could be on radio and I could use my voice to be a personality, and I could entertain and I could make people laugh on radio. And I just loved it. So I started the radio station. I got a job, BBC Radio Essex. Whilst I was at university, I had my own show on the BBC with BBC Radio Essex. And I was interviewing politicians, doing political debates, interviewing bands, traveling around London, sort of A&R, finding new up-and-coming bands to interview. I sat on Robert Plant's lap and interviewed him in a ladies' toilet. Led Zeppelin.
What time period would this be?
Oh, God, that'll give away how old I am. We don't want to do that, do we?
Let's say what 3-4 decade span would this be?
This was the late 90s, early 2000s.
Oh, okay, that's not. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Oh, who's this guy? Who's your special? We have a second guest. I see.
Yeah, this is Moneypenny.
Okay, well, cool. So you were doing that, and then how does finance enter this? I know that that I believe you're at you're a Chase economist and in that world for a little while.
Yeah, so my degree was in microeconomics, quantitative analysis, and obviously I did politics, sociology as sort of minor courses. And I did quite well. I got a very high score. So I got an interview with Chase Manhattan, as it was called at the time in London, to be an economist. And I got the job, and I worked with Chase for a couple of years as an economist on the trading floor during a really, really bearish market where when I joined, 400 people walked out the door with a box full of their belongings as I was walking in.
Wow. What with quantitative analysis, is that what you studied? I mean, I have to kind of jump forward a little bit. What do you think of all these new computing microchips and quantitative? I mean, this idea that you have a microchip that is so powerful that it has to like transfer between dimensions. Like, I don't even know what that means. I don't know if you understand what that means, but
oh, you're talking about quantum computing. Yeah, you're talking about quantum computing. That is incredible because if you've ever seen it, the quantum computer is probably about the size of a house, but it's not the actual computer. The actual computer is that big. The actual quantum physical hardware of it is to basically cool it and protect it and look after it. But it is beyond, most dimensions, most people's thought levels. And I can't claim to fully understand the computer hardware side of it. But I do simply know that what it's doing is massively escalating processing power, data capture storage power, to the extent that, for example, we'll probably get onto it, plasma, being the fourth state of matter, plasma propulsion in drones is 5G and 6G and beyond amount of data capacity or data backup you need to do that. It's an infinite processing of multitasking processing. So instead of a normal computer versus quantum, as I understand it, a quantum is effectively doing myriads of tasks all at the same time across different dimensions, rather than having to focus on one thing, rather than you going, oh God, my processing power is being used up. It's going to freeze in a minute. You've got multiple things all going on at different dimensions.
I can't wait to get into the plasma stuff because I find it super fascinating, and we'll get to that in just a second. But just to put a period on the sentence, so you spent your time in journalism, you spent your time as an economist. How do you arrive at X and Spaces and Twitter and that whole world where we ended up meeting?
So that's kind of the sad part, really, because up until 2019. I was running my third business. I started my first business in my late 20s. I realized I was unemployable. I don't like working for people because I have too many ideas. And with my sort of Asperger head, I'm a bit lateral and people find it difficult to work with me. So I started my own business.
That makes 4 of us, okay?
So if you're unemployable, you've got to start your own thing.
You're a serial entrepreneur is what you are.
Yeah. And they, you know, I had 3 different businesses, all predominantly in financial services, media, working effectively as a journalist, doing a lot of writing, copywriting, broadcast training, TV, radio, all that sort of stuff. And then in 2019, I went to St. Lucia for my usual holiday. I'd just come out of a 9-year relationship. I was on my own. I was ready to go to St. Lucia for Christmas 2019, and I got incredibly ill on Christmas Day, 25th, 26th December, which at the time I thought I was told it was swine flu. Flew home early, and effectively, long story short, I had COVID. I was the first I still am the longest long COVID surviving sufferer in the UK, and I became quite seriously ill. It was touch and go type ill.
For anybody who doesn't know, what are sort of maybe the standard symptoms of long COVID? How does that affect somebody having that?
It's effectively an attack on the organs caused by the blood being too thick to be able to feed oxygen through the body. So through the little capillaries and arteries and veins, the blood becomes like a gluey substance that is heavy and thick. And unless you get oxygen to the different parts of your body, particularly to your brain, everything starts to shut down. So you can get a myriad of different diseases and illnesses as a result of it, particularly autoimmune, which I'm sure you don't want me to go into the physics and biology of it, but it triggers a whole host of autoimmune illnesses. So all my hair fell out. Well, not all of my hair, quite a lot of my hair fell out quite early. Obviously, I've got rheumatoid arthritis. I've got vascularity, brain problems. I've obviously had some brain damage as such. I've still got no smell, no taste. My eyesight's deteriorated rapidly. I've got myocarditis, heart issue, and a whole range of liver and kidney organ damage that has been ongoing. And I haven't been able to walk outside for 4 or 5 years. So I rarely leave the house, which is why I turn to social media, and particularly social audio, because I can't use my hands well because they're so painful. So I dictate everything and use social audio. So I had no friends, nobody to talk to in my house, very ill on my own. And social media was the only thing that literally kept me alive because I had nothing. I lost my business. I lost everything. I lost absolutely everything.
That's actually really fascinating, because so much of what people talk about with social media is that it's evil, or it's this thing that distorts social relationships. But I think the opposite side of the coin, to be fair, is that there's a lot of people that maybe don't feel any social connection, and that's the one place that they find it.
I was lonely. I was too lonely. I didn't have a human to speak to. And when you're locked in, when initially you're told there's a deadly thing outside, you're terrified. And I was also terrified of dying. And paramedics coming in my house were the only people I got to talk to. And when I discovered stereo initially, then Clubhouse, and then Twitter, or X as it's become, I had almost a virtual family, and I had people I could talk to. And suddenly my life became a lot more interesting and active, and it really probably got me through the worst times.
I'm sad to hear that happened to you. It just Are there any, say someone else is going through what you went through, are there any things you can recommend, like things to do that can, help ease, the effects of it? Or is it just, it is what it is?
So, first of all, medical disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, but I am the longest long COVID sufferer, and I'm still alive. And I tell you, I'm not allowed to do this. You probably cut it. Nicotine. Nicotine as a natural substance, nicotine and medical marijuana, honestly, are 2 of the things that I personally have found very beneficial, and scientific studies would support that.
There's a revolution going on right now with nicotine, with the pouches and people using them, and more studies coming out that like nicotine itself is not really harmful for you. It's not more harmful than caffeine.
All part of a government psyop. A psyop, I think, from the early years. They stuff a load of chemicals and things in there that are the harmful bits, but nicotine itself,
It's great. It increases testosterone in men. It kills pests. It kills viral stuff in your body.
It's my only medication for ADHD, that and medical cannabis. I mean, the way I smoke, I don't know if you'll call it medical, but cannabis, anyways.
Well, yeah, I wish I could get it here. You can't get it here legally. It's not legal.
I'll throw a pouch in when I need to get some work done, and it's like a cup of coffee, you know, like throw a nicotine pouch in, and I get some work done. Like you get focused. It's almost like taking Adderall. Drink some caffeine and have some nicotine. You're like in a zone, you know.
It can't be worse than these nitro cold brews I be drinking all day, trying to get work done. Freaking out here, all hopped up on legal methamphetamine. You know what I'm saying?
Even that, I don't think is bad necessarily. It's if your stomach can handle it, right? Like I think that it's more so the problem with like the coffee, the nitro cold brew, stuff like that. It's not the caffeine. Like this has more caffeine than a coffee. You know what I mean? It's about like what it does to your stomach. So have like a probiotic Greek yogurt or something, you'll be fine.
The thing is, everything in your body, every cell in your body has a charge. Think of it like a magnet, a plus or minus charge. It's called paramagnetics. Okay, and so the spike protein on the SARS-CoV-2 virus had a +6, very, very strong positive charge, which means it can cut through the membrane of a cell and get infected and infect the cell very, very quickly. Now, everything you eat, everything you put in your body, and pretty much everything around your body, and the air that you breathe, and absolutely everything has a charge. You know, energy at a subatomic level. Everything is affecting you, even the negative or positive energy of the person you're talking to. I know it sounds crazy, but when you become, this is a lot down to people I've met that I started studying it, but you know, even the ability for you to boost your own success by thinking positively and having a positive mental attitude, stuff like that. But it all comes down to subatomic chemical biocellular physics stuff that I just love.
Getting into that direction on things. So like I mentioned before, we met you in these UAP drone spaces, and I mean the stuff you're posting for anybody who wants to. I mean, go to her X page, and the things you're posting are so detailed and so fascinating. But I kind of want to understand, how did that start for you, and what is your fascination with this phenomenon? And then maybe we can get into kind of what you think it is.
So somebody asked me why I joined the UFO community specifically, and I said, because none of the other communities would have me.
I did the same thing, but the problem with that is I don't know if I want to be a member of any club that would have me as a member.
Touché! I like it. I like that. Yeah, no, the honest answer is there are a lot of scientific question marks that fascinate me behind the whole extraterrestrial non-human intelligence, even the hardware level of a craft's propulsion, of the space saucer, flying saucer. The actual hardware has so many challenges that go into stuff like, Tesla and Einstein and relativity and quantum physics movement. And so that science bit grabs me. Then the actual non-human intelligence, alien, ET, that fascinates me, because I actually have very expansive beliefs in the existence, to the level that I actually have theories as to how they exist, what they eat, what they breathe, the physiology change of them, why cattle are sometimes attacked.
Well, let's get into it. I'm fascinated by all this. Where should we start to understand, who are these aliens, Moneypenny? Who are they?
They are us from the future coming back, most likely.
So they're coming back. They're killing these cows to get the protein, because we can only eat the bugs in the future. Is that what you're saying?
No, not quite. No, but no. Look, I think the thing is, when you look at there are experiments that have been done where you look at the DNA and you look at genome sequencing and genomic testing and all that sort of stuff. I'm highly suspicious about why suddenly 6 billion people had to have a PCR test, where 10% of those PCR results got sent to a World Genomic Council that were looking for something in the DNA of the world human population. I wonder why they needed to do that. But I do know that coincidentally, they have now linked a group of us back to certain enzymes within our genetics that allow us to go through a human hibernation structure, which means we would have been able to get through the ice age and possibly would have been cryogenically able to have been frozen, or certainly parts of us, or some of us would have been able to. Some of us have Neanderthal genes, and some of us have genetics that are not of this world, that are not understandable, that may come from the Anunnaki type way back genes. So I honestly think that when we talk about aliens or non-human intelligence, that they probably are a forward version of the civilization that began on Earth, that became much more expansive and intelligent than we currently are, and we are actually almost a backward step from them. That's what I think.
A funny note, my brother has 1% Neanderthal DNA, according to his DNA test results.
Not being funny, but Anglo-Saxons are more predisposed to it. There's something about the Celt, the British Celt, Welsh Celt, Irish Celt, Scottish, that are higher proportionately in having a Neanderthal connection.
I don't know. It's not in mine DNA. We have different dads, so it's got to come from his dad. But he's a big boy. He's like he's 18 years old. He's like 6'3" and 200 pounds, you know, like, so.
It's a survivor gene. I mean, when people say Neanderthal, they go, oh, Neanderthal. But actually, it is a strong survivor gene, isn't it? I mean, to have got this far, it's got to be pretty robust.
So you feel that if whatever extraterrestrials there are, they are from the future, human entities of some kind, or human evolved entities of some kind. But in the case of these like UAP drones and all that kind of stuff, do you feel like those things are alien? Do you feel like they're ours? What are your thoughts on the recent UAP drone phenomena that we're seeing all over the world?
Okay, so this is where you'll have to stop me, because I could write a book on this. But so, first of all, let's get the terminology correct, because unfortunately, not everybody, a lot of people get it incorrect. So UAP and UFO are two similar things, and UFO is the word that you use in the UK and Europe, and UAP is the American equivalent, let's call it, of a phenomena that you don't know what it is, that's in the sky, that's flying around. But UAV, which is unmanned aerial vehicle, which is sometimes referred to as a drone, which is often used in military capabilities, where the military will refer to it as UAV, is very different to a UAP. And that gets confusing. But I totally believe that what we have had recently are a lot of different types of drones, as a generic, I'll use that word, that predominantly are, well, I say 95% now, man-made, some of them incredibly advanced, and some of them are effectively duping to look like they are more extraterrestrial than they are, by utilizing a plasma-based exterior, which is morphological, combined with laser optics that are able to show us something different to what we actually have there, which means that when you've got different types of ionized air, and you are creating vacuums, you've got various different things playing around with electromagnetics and gravity, you can see something that is actually very different in reality to what you're actually seeing, because you can use plasma as a deceptive cloak to project something. And then there is also the one thing that is non-human is a pure plasmoid or plasma-based organic with no moving parts. It's not just a cover. There's a pure plasmoid plasma that I believe is the non-human thing that may have been the inspiration for retro-engineering back to what we are currently seeing in the advanced technology bubble.
So you're saying Project Bluebeam. That's what I hear. So you think it's humans trying to act like aliens in the sky.
We have been deceived for decades and decades and decades. If you go back to the Nazi files from the 1940s and 50s and look what those Nazi engineers were doing, they even have blueprints. They are on my profile, on my X profile. You will see the most fantastically advanced propulsion that was done by these amazing German scientists, which is why they were snaffled up by Russia and the United States after the war. They were building stuff that deliberately was looking like flying saucers in the 1950s and 60s that was able to fly around, not very long. It couldn't last so long because of battery and power, propulsion, whatever, but it looked like a flying saucer. And isn't that a great way to divert attention and deflect attention and confuse people? And as a military device, that is a super psychological thing of, suddenly we've got aliens everywhere. So yeah, it goes back decades. They've been hiding stuff like this, but only recently did I find out exactly how advanced it is, which is mind-blowing stuff. It's crazy.
For anybody who may be watching who's like, what? Like, what's his name? Andreessen Horowitz. He went on Rogan and was talking about a bunch of stuff, but he revealed that they met with the government about AI. And the plan was that they were going to limit AI to just 3, Microsoft, Google, something, whatever. But he also revealed that they told him basically, hey, we're going to do the same thing we did in the 60s with physics. We're going to limit who gets knowledge about all the different things in physics. And for many years, people have been, I know, I think it's Brett Weinstein or the other Weinstein, Eric Weinstein, has been talking about how, like, why has there been no advancement in, there's been all this advancement in quantum physics and all that kind of stuff, but there hasn't been any advancement in, just your core physics, type of stuff. So I'm just emphasizing anybody who's, might be like, what? Like, go to her profile, look at her tweets. It's real things that you write and real actual evidence that you present. And I believe it. I definitely feel that things have been hidden for a long time now that we should have probably already figured out. But going back to what you're saying, you've really done a deep dive on these plasmoids and plasma. Can you maybe, for someone who doesn't know anything about that, can you give a basic sort of rundown of what that means, what that is, what that technology consists of?
Yes. I wish I had a donut, though, because that would make it easier for me to describe it. And I'll just say, because obviously these are some big topics, and one thing I swear by is, having been a journalist, you lose all reputation as a journalist if you don't provide references or receipts, as they're sometimes called, or evidence. So one thing I do have is a huge amount of archive, but I do put a lot of it online, and it does allow you to go off and look at it for yourself, because don't believe everything you see online. So plasma is not blood plasma. That is a completely different thing. Plasma is the fourth state of matter. So you have solids, you have gases, and you have liquids. Those are the 3 states of matter that we are familiar with. Now, when you start off with water and you put it in a kettle and you boil it, liquid turns into gas. And what you're doing there is exciting the molecular parts of it more and more. So it's becoming more fluid, okay? So it goes from a solid. So you can get something solid, you put in your pan, you might put a sausage in your pan, and you start cooking it, and it starts moving its molecules around a bit more, and it can go into a liquid, and then even more, and it goes into a gas. And plasma is the next state of that, where it's chaotically moving around, and effectively that is plasma, the fourth state of matter. And what it effectively is a substance that is created through the use of electromagnetics and other natural energies, I'm going to say. There are many energies of the Earth. So the Earth itself is surrounded by its own magnetic energies. And then we've got gravity, and then we've got things like kinetic energy. And then when you see ball lightning, you have this sort of arcing of energy. You've got all these different natural things where you don't have to dig up coal and all that stuff. And plasma is part of that, part of the equation. And something called zero energy, plasma is part of. So in a donut, you normally have your jam. And your donut is what is called a toroidal structure. If you got a donut and on the inside you put all the electromagnetics on the inside of it, and then the outside of it, you put electromagnetics on the outside, and obviously you've got your hole in the middle, and you effectively put your magnets through there, and you just literally put an electric current going around your donut, and then you threw in some hydrogen isotopes, which you can get from the ocean, from ocean water, okay? Hydrogen isotopes, and it's going round, and it's just like water, and then suddenly it's getting faster and faster, and woo, you've suddenly got plasma. You've made plasma, which is the fourth state of matter, which is all done at a subatomic level and is created there as something that we normally associate with atomic fusion, which is something that the make and is the route to creating energy, which is totally going to recycle itself and would never need anything else other than just being able to carry on doing its stuff and making free energy. And who would want that? Well, who wouldn't want it? The cartels, of course, those oil barons. And so Tesla, from many years ago, Nikola Tesla and others who have invented or played with all those sorts of things and the derivations, who have died suddenly, disappeared suddenly, and all those clever things like running cars on water and all those things, that's all related to the same stuff. It's the government trying to hide shit that would basically stop the money going through the elite money people that don't want us to discover it.
So you think Tesla found 0 point energy?
Well, the Tesla coil and AC/DC power and all the electromagnetic frequencies effectively were the birth of a lot of it. I mean, it's not precisely zero energy, but it's the foundations.
Also, I was doing some side research and just confirming that lightning is plasma itself.
Yeah, the sun. The sun is plasma. Stars are plasma. You know, the sun is the biggest bit of plasma going. Yeah.
When we see the lightning strike, the electrical discharge heats up the gas in the air so hot. That's what we actually see when we see lightning strike, is the hot gas that is turned into plasma because the electricity pulls the electrons, ionizes the gas, and turns it into that liquid, hot looking state.
Bingo. So that is plasma propulsion. So when you've got a ball of plasma, think of it like a star. Excuse me. In order to move fast, if this is a UFO thing, these are the natural, which I think non-human plasma orbs that we're seeing. They are ionizing the gas. So they're creating a vacuum in front of the flying thing, and they move forward by reducing or increasing the ionization and the density of the air. So they're moving fast. They're changing direction fast by altering the air around it, by ionizing the air around it. And they are morphological because, like you say, they're like lightning. They're like a star. They can sort of change their shape and adapt as they are changing the air around them. And I do believe that some of what we have potentially seen over New Jersey and everywhere else, I think there might have been some natural, organic plasmoids, as well as the ones that are meant to look like them, the copy ones from Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, that they've just wrapped a bit of plasma around a mechanical device.
Interesting. I think you were saying, maybe it was you, that there is a genetic component to plasmoids.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Can you explain that? Because that seems so bizarre to me. But how does that work? What is that? I don't even understand what that means.
I don't think I'm fully qualified to explain all of it, but effectively you have a neural network. You have a neurology in the same way you want signals of energy. We have bioelectricity that drives us, that makes our brain think, that jumps stuff across our synapses. We have bioelectricity. So you need a connection of different types of energy to different cells and atomic, well, from the protons to the neutrons to the atoms, all the bits. They need to connect and communicate. And they're doing that effectively by having a network, communication network within the plasma. So they have a structure in the same way that we all have our own personalities and we have our own brains and we have the different ways. Effectively, it's very possible that the plasmoid would have its own sentience. It would have a different connection structure depending on the molecular setup. It would have its own genetic DNA type structure. It's not technically DNA like double-stranded like we think, but it would be an equivalent, because we are thinking of something beyond 3 dimensions that may very well have a structure that is going into a time dimension as well. So I can't understand all of that, but I think you know what I'm getting at. It's got its own identity. It's got its own genetics or DNA that means everyone is different, and it's an organic, potentially sentient thing. It will communicate with others like a single cell organism called a xenobot, which is just a little single cell that can reproduce, find its way through a maze, and communicate with another single cell xenobot within 24 hours of being born. And it can negotiate through a maze, replicate, make more of it within 72 hours. I mean, that's a single cell. We all came from a single cell. That is what is happening. This plasma thing is like a cell. It is capable of replicating, thinking, making decisions, having energy, reacting with other energies. That is the principle. But it's beyond me.
There are two things that kind of spawn from this that you are also kind of doing deep dives on, that I want to get your take on. The first one is MH370. So for anybody out there maybe watching, I think MH370 was a flight that left Malaysia. It was heading to China, and then mysteriously vanished. They traced, I believe they traced they traced the path to I think it was going towards China, then it like turned around, and then it went back over like the Indian Ocean or whatever, and then boom, poof. Someone who has been just doggedly talking about this and found video footage of MH370 heat signature footage, I believe, is showing that it's the plane. And it's two different videos that are corroborating. I think it's a plane. It has the three plasma kind of orbs circling around it, and then the plane just boom, it just vanishes. So I guess my first question to you, Moneypenny, is what do you think about what he's saying? And I know that you've done the deeper research to show that this is real.
Yeah, so this is Ashton Forbes, who I followed for a couple of years, probably from very early on in his investigations when he first got hold of the videos. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm sure you are familiar with him, but he has his own YouTube channel, and he's gone off into a lot of scientific exploration. He has basically, in MH370 terms, done the how it might have disappeared, and I have focused on the why it has disappeared and who was behind it and what are the ramifications of what was the motive. If it did disappear, who disappeared it and why? I have not crossed the line of going into Ashton's area. Firstly, because there's nobody more brilliant than him at knowing what he is talking about. And secondly, because I support what he has said to about 80-90%. And I vary on that because I do have doubts. I have doubts. I have most doubts about at the end of it. He shows a video with 3 orbs surrounding the Malaysian airline after it's already diverted wildly off course, after it's lost radar contact, and it's in an area where it wouldn't normally have been. Now, 3 orbs, I totally believe is very possible, more so since the disclosure inquiry when Schellenberger stood up with a Pentagon-leaked paper which showed that an F-22 had been diverted off course by 3 orbs. Now, that is not a coincidence. The Pentagon are saying an F-22 was taken off course by 3 orbs. And here Ashton has a video, potentially, of the Malaysian airline with 3 orbs being taken off course. So all of that, I believe, up to the implosion, explosion, thermo, ecto, endothermic, whatever happens. But that is not my doing. So because I'm interested as a journalist in the motive. Why would somebody want to do that? What would they achieve? Was it related to somebody actually on the plane? Was it part of the cargo on the plane? Is it related to the fact that there was a huge, in fact, the world's largest money scandal was in Malaysia at the time it happened, as was a huge geopolitical, massive war going on in 2014 between Russia, China, Libya, Ukraine, or as it was at the time, and pretty much everyone else. There was a chaos going on. There was a money scandal. There were people that could have been part of wanting to take that plane down. And that's why 10 years on, there have been so many theories and conspiracies that all I wanted to do was find the truth. And that's pretty easy unless you want evidence. But I wanted the evidence. I wanted paperwork. I wanted documents. I wanted to get rid of all the, everybody has an idea on this. And the problem with journalism is if you've got a whiteboard that is chaotically full with distraction stuff, you'll never get to what is actually the real thing. So I started investigating again a few years ago when Ashton was looking at the video, and I wanted to look at motive. But it was only in the last few weeks, literally within the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think, that I had a break, like an investigator, looking at a crime. I had a break. A small thing was given to me that fascinated me, and I went down the rabbit hole. And I don't know how much detail you want, but I went down the rabbit hole, and I got the evidence. And I have absolute convincing evidence, documents, everything of why MH370 would be taken down. What I don't have is the how, which is the Ashton bit.
What would be the reason? Was it a certain set of passengers or something like that, or a single passenger, or what would be the reason to make it disappear?
First of all, you've got a Malaysian airline, which predominantly the passengers on board, 239, I think, are passengers, there's crew, or whatever it is. It's about 41 people on board. Predominantly Malaysian and Chinese, particularly. There's only one American, to our knowledge, who is a guy that works for IBM. And all of this I'm telling you is all, public knowledge. And there are lots of theories that there are people on board that have, certain reasons to be taken down. But the most important is there are 20 passengers from a company called Freescale Semiconductors, which is actually an American company, but has most of its activity and its employees all happening in China and Malaysia, because semiconductors, particularly in 2014, are totally centered around Taiwan, China, Malaysia, and that area, Japan, or whatever. So on board are 20 people all working for a semiconductor company, which we know has produced some of the most advanced semiconductors, and in particular, what we call the stealth semiconductor, or the semiconductor chip that would enable a fighter jet to become invisible. And that, in my earlier years, was one of the reasons I was convinced that the plane was taken down. And it's probably still got a factor in there. There is such advanced technology in the know-how of those 20 people. Potentially also, though, there is a lot of stuff on board, cargo stuff on board. Now, we know there's this huge amount of lithium batteries that set on fire. And when you look at Ashton's video, you'll see that. That's very unusual. And that is potentially a distracting thing, because a huge amount of lithium batteries is very unusual. At that time, the security, I don't know, it didn't quite go through the right security route. It was meant to report to somebody when it got to Beijing at the other end. Anyway, let's push those aside. Also in the cargo, we've got magnetometers, we've got accelerometers, we've got gyroscopes. Now, those are all generics, but they are all things that are part of, you could be building an atomic bomb with them. You could be building advanced propulsion spaceships with them. You could be building some amazing quantum computer with them. But why are they relevant, and what are they doing in the cargo? And to be honest, if they're in the cargo, I say, they could have something this big, which is the most incredible quantum computer type semiconductor chip that is all that is required to give the US military a colossal advantage over the Chinese and Russian military, because that little chip will enable complete invisibility, or electromagnetic weapons, or laser-based weapons, or whatever it might be. So it might not be the cargo, I thought at the time. And then I looked particularly on a forum, a couple of forums, military forums and nuclear forums. I started to see a reference somebody that I believe was trying to point somebody who was watching in the right direction. And they said, follow the gyroscope. Now, over 10 years of every single person, lots of journalists having studied this, looked at it, come up with theories, nobody had mentioned a gyroscope or the importance of a gyroscope. And it didn't make sense. And that was my lucky break, because I then went on to discover the importance of a gyroscope in a very powerful weapon of mass destruction that both China and Russia were simultaneously trying to build in a weapon race against the United States at that time in 2014. And that particular weapon required a very clever, sophisticated gyroscope sensor as part of its overall hardware. And basically, I found that the cargo that was on an American cargo ship called the Maersk Alabama off the Seychelles in February of 2014, there were 2 Navy SEALs that were guarding a very sensitive cargo. The cargo was not disclosed. 2 Navy SEALs died very suddenly whilst they were in the Seychelles, and it looked externally as though it was a heroin overdose, although their families and friends said that was absolutely ludicrous. They hadn't taken any drugs. They're not the sort of people. They were fitness fanatics. So we've got very delicate cargo that is headed for MH370 that is in the Seychelles being guarded by 2 Navy SEALs. And I have to decide whether or not that has a link to gyroscopes. And I'm going to cut it now and go a bit faster because I don't want to go into too much detail. But effectively, what I discovered is what the cargo was effectively is LARS, which is capital L, small a, capital R, capital S. This is the most advanced precision laser weapon that in 2014, it turned out that the Russian GRU, which is the equivalent of your very high civil, Secret Service intel, the Russian GRU, of which Putin was actually part of at one point, had been conducting surveillance on this cargo for 2 years. It was following this cargo to the extent it knew whatever it was going to be on that plane, on Malaysian airline, on that day, going to that destination. The Chinese PLA, this is the People's Liberation Authority in China, this is the highest level of security in China, is also not only surveilling this cargo and this plane, but is already, according to written stuff I cannot validate, ready to ensure that plane never gets to its destination. It was going to be diverted to Hunan, a certain part of the Chinese province. So China and Russia were surveilling this. The United States somehow had got this cargo on board a cargo ship, Alabama, probably under some low-level disguise, who knows what, and 2 Navy SEALs are suddenly killed about 3 weeks before the plane is about to take off, all of which is very mysterious. And the long, short argument of it is, wouldn't you kill 239 people to get your hands on a weapon of mass destruction, the ultimate laser-guided, gyroscopically able to be shot off a ship that is bobbing around, laser-guided, electromagnetic capable weapon that is purposefully designed to take out, get this, drones. It is a laser drone weapon, and it is 2014, and whoever gets it first has the WMD of the future, of today, of what is happening in Ukraine and Gaza and Israel today, is the ability to cloak, to shell, to take down drones, no matter what. And that was what 3 world powers wanted. And that airplane was going to decide who got it.
That is, and again, for anybody watching, this is not just Moneypenny making some theories of. Go on her X, you post all the documents there, you show all the evidence there of what you found. I mean, this is like, there's a lot to back up what you're saying. So, man, it's great, but it makes sense to me. I mean, hey, like, I mean, I don't. That's a tough decision, you know. Maybe they got transported to some other alternate dimension where they're living in paradise. I don't know. I'm just saying.
I don't know where they are. I mean, I'm fascinated by Ashton's part of it because, you know, I haven't looked into that bit. I've looked into the motive. I looked into the $11.8 billion. I looked into how Israel is part of everything I've discussed. I looked into the politics of why the Obama administration did certain things they shouldn't have been doing and why there was a complete cover-up. I mean, I've just given you the story in that much. Go on my profile. You will find corruption leaking through every aspect of the US government, the US intel agencies, the cover-ups, the concealments, the money moving is astronomical. I call it the $1 trillion takeout. It's trillions of dollars that were related to MH370. But how bizarre that today is all about drones. And MH370 in 2014, 10 years ago, was all about the drone laser takedown technology. Boom! And it's come together at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, and it kind of ties into maybe the last thing we'll talk about today. But in terms of the drone energy weapons and all that, for anybody who doesn't know, I would recommend check out Sean Ryan's interview with Joe Lonsdale, and he really goes into in depth how I mean it's no longer a secret. We have drone technology where it can shoot out energy beams that basically destroy other drones. They call it unlimited payload. Basically, there's no bullets or anything like that.
That comes from England or Scotland, actually. We were first with it, I'll have you know, young man.
All right. Okay. All right.
Just Star Wars. Literally, you'll see headlines 2 months ago, October, November. You would have seen headlines saying Star Wars weapons deployed in the Ukraine. You know, yeah, amazing stuff.
Yeah, it makes me, man, I don't know if we should go on this tangent. It makes me think about the LA wildfires, but let's maybe we'll get to that. But I do want to talk to you about something that you've been talking about recently, and it relates to the recent, I guess, quote unquote, terrorist attack in front of Trump Tower with the Cybertruck. But I know that Dr. Greer, who whether you believe him or not, but he's saying that there's going to be more disclosures coming very, very soon. I'm assuming in coinciding with Trump taking office again, and he's saying that along with this disclosure that there's going to be maybe more potential terrorist activity. But what is your take on Dr. Greer and his claim of this disclosure that's going to happen? And going back to the Cybertruck, how does it link to that in terms of what's happening there?
So I have to give a disclaimer because I think if I was in the United States and I told you what I'm about to tell you, I would probably get in a lot of trouble. And I've probably got people parked outside my house ready to, lock me behind bars. But ironically, I didn't explain why I was called Moneypenny. But one of the weird things is I'm living within a mile of the, it's called GCHQ, the Government Communication Headquarters, which is like the headquarters of all our secret squirrel intel agency stuff is a mile down the road from me. But yes, so this Stephen Greer is one of those characters who I am highly suspicious and skeptical of the first time I see him. And the second time I see him, I'm probably even more skeptical. But the thing is, I don't know much about his background. I only know what I can read. He projects to be very well connected on the inside doors of, he's all about disclosure. His mission is getting disclosure out. He's called a ufologist. But effectively, he seems to have a lot of military and government type connections. And over the past few months, he's been putting out videos which started to allude to a black ops project, which involved a lot of former military black operators that effectively gone rogue. And that these guys that have gone rogue for reasons that he explained, which is mainly to do with some of the horrendous things they've been asked to do as part of their undercover operations, which is, as well as reverse engineering and actually having the actual, flying saucers, actually having the organics, which is the non-human things. They've also been doing experiments on humans. They've taken people and possibly even children from not so nice countries that aren't that well off, and they've done some horrendous things which they hate under the auspices of a project they were told to do by someone up above in the US elite.
Are you talking about the Philippines?
I'm talking about 6 different sites worldwide. And he refers to them as deserts. I don't know. I can only go on what he said. Anyway, so these are worldwide sites that have been going on 20, 30 years. This is not something that's happened like recently, but the people that have been operating these sites and doing these things have gone rogue because effectively they've been turned their back on. Some reason the intel agencies that were controlling them have said, we're having nothing to do with you. We're not standing by you. We're not going to have anything. We're not going to say that you exist, blah, blah, blah. So these guys have gone rogue. This is what Stephen Greer said. And he said that between like the 1st of January and January 20th, when Trump comes in, inauguration, all the rest of it, there were going to be various military-led incidents of a terrorist type nature that are all about pointing a message and effectively saying to the higher US government, right, you buggers, I'm saying buggers, right, you buggers, we are going to unveil everything we've kept secret for 20 years unless you play ball, because you have absolutely kicked the shit out of us. And the drones that are over New Jersey, which, as we now know from all the paperwork, obviously on my profile, that are all these advanced, $11 billion of Lockheed Martin secret squirrel building shit. Those drones that are up there, which are actually testing, these black op people are connected to that. But also Matt, whatever his surname was, I can't pronounce it, Liversling or whatever, the guy that was in the Tesla truck. He's a Green Beret. The New Orleans guy apparently was a Green Beret. The Fort Worth explosion that went off. I mean, all these things, but particularly the California fire, arson people. Stephen Greer effectively stood up 2 or 3 days ago and said, Matt, the guy in the Tesla truck guy, is one of the black op people that Dr. Stephen Greer has actually met. And he actually flew him in a helicopter over these different sites and explained everything that was going to happen. And all these different attacks, the New Orleans, the Tesla truck, the drones, the fires, every single one of them is a black op part of this sort of protest movement of these guys that have gone rogue. Now, when I heard all that, I thought, bullshit. I thought, got me, bullshit. I thought it was rubbish. But then I started investigating. And unfortunately, the more I investigated, the more I got paperwork, the more I dug out technical stuff, the more I got credibility that stood it up to a huge extent. And that's where I am with it, really.
Man, that's fascinating and scary. I mean, Trump said, Moneypenny, January 21st, all is revealed. We're going to know what these drones are and what's going on. Do you believe that's going to happen?
Well, maybe they've got to do it, because these guys that are going rogue, they're not the guys that you mess with, are they? They're black ops, senior level, and there's probably a lot of them, and they're going back with a lot of hatred, 20 years, in the highest level of guerrilla warfare tactics. You don't want to mess with them. So if they do not disclose it, on the 21st of whatever, or just before, God help us, because look at what's happened in California and New Orleans and everywhere else. That has only been a demonstration of them saying, look out, this is who we are. If this is the message, God forbid, we don't want the actual package delivered, do we?
All right. Well, I mean, this has been a fascinating discussion. I wish we could continue to dig deeper and deeper and deeper, but I feel like my head would probably spin. Listen, Moneypenny, thank you so much for coming on the Goat Show. For anybody out there whose mind's blown and wants to learn more about her, we'll put all of her links in the show notes for you to do your own investigation. All right, go follow her, and we definitely want to have you on. Maybe we'll have you on again later in the year or something to see how everything's kind of developed out, and maybe the things you're talking about, how they end up happening. So, but before we get out of here, we have the goats on the show. It's called the Goat Show. So, we're going to have to toast the goats on the show. So I know that you have a little Bailey's cream there. So toast to you, Moneypenny, and appreciate you for coming on the show and for giving all this amazing information.
Thanks, guys. I think I talked too much because you guys didn't get a word in edgeways.
No. I'm happy not to talk.
It's an interview about you, so we want to know about your past and what you got going on, and it'll leave a lot for us to talk about in the next one when you come on again.
Okay, I would tip my hat to you. Thank you, darling. I'm going off to have my cucumber sandwiches now. If you'd like to join me, I'll be on the balcony.